Hello. So I bought a new toy. I bought the Excalibur TwinStrike. And I think that is an interesting, exciting bow, and it's fun to shoot. And so I want to tell you a little bit about it and some of my philosophy and thinking about it. Why did I buy this bow? Well, obviously the novelty of having two shots was interesting to me. Did I initially think it would make a lot of sense to have it? That's something I've kind of gone back and forth a little bit. But one thing I do know is getting another shot off of a crossbow is a hassle. Generally speaking, you're going to be winding it up, bending over, pulling on some cords or something to get a shot ready. If you were always a one-shot wonder, you would only take one arrow with you into the woods. But the reality is you take a quiver of arrows with you, with the idea that you may have to take a second shot. Now, normally, you probably have time to reset your crossbow under a general circumstance where you may be shot at a deer, missed, recock, and you still can sit there for another hour. I realize that. But there are occasions where you may have shot at a deer, missed, chased him off, scared him a little bit. It's early in the season, and all of a sudden that little herd comes back and you have a second shot ready, but you don't have time to reload and not get picked off by the deer, by the movement or the sound. In that case, it would be wonderful to have a second shot ready to go. Also, when you go turkey hunting, in fact, I shot a turkey with my regular compound bow last week, and this is the arrow. You can see some of the feathers on it. It was luckily a recoverable turkey. I shot above the legs and got into some vitals. But to be honest with you, that turkey started running away, and I wish I'd had another arrow ready to go. Had I had an arrow in my quiver, I probably would have gotten maybe a second shot. It's hard to say. And it might have been really hard to get a second shot on a running turkey. But there are a lot of times when you're turkey hunting and you shoot, maybe the shot's a little bit off, you're getting a little more breast meat, less vitals. The turkey nose has been hurt, but it's kind of flopping around and hasn't figured out, oh, I can use my legs and wings again. You've got to get another arrow into that turkey or it's not going to be recoverable. That's when this TwinStrike would be a great tool for a second shot. So there are plenty of opportunities, maybe, albeit not all the time, where a second shot ready to go would be ideal. I can see going hog hunting, having hogs come into a feeder, shoot one, maybe scared them off, come back, or one sticking around because it's not that loud of there's not a gun, for instance. And even when you have guns, sometimes you get things coming back in. Having a second shot is nice. When I was loading this crossbow, it's actually quite like all other decent modern crossbows. It has a wonderful winding device over here that can clip on and take off. But the reality is you're still spending minutes, several minutes, loading up your crossbow. And so having that second shot actually, I think, is much more realistic and ideal than people might realize it is initially. Because I was kind of thinking the same thing, is how many times are you really going to have another chance at a shot? The other thing is this target practice. It's more pleasant to have two shots because of the time it takes to wind up your bow. You wind up your bow, shoot. Wind up your bow, shoot. It's nice to wind up your bow, shoot, shoot. Wind up your bow, shoot, shoot. Now, granted, it does take a little bit longer to wind up your bow because you have two crossbows essentially on top of each other. However, I found it to be not bad at all. The other concern I had about getting a TwinStrike is I thought it'd be big and bulky when I first saw the videos. But it actually is a very slim profile, small and actually in holding. You can see, relatively speaking, my hand in relationship to it. It's an average size hand, and so it is not really bulky at all to take into the woods. It'll work really well in a blind. Again, these limbs are thin. It's not that front heavy. It's just a little bit over 7 pounds empty, cleaned with all the stuff off of it. Obviously it gets heavier when you got the scope and all the other things and arrow quivers. I found the quiver system works really well, snaps on and snaps off really easy. You can put it on here or on the left side. You can set it up however you want. And the winding system is also ambidextrous as well. It does come with a strap. They recommend you using that strap so that if you won't lose hold of that handle and potentially hit your knuckles. In fact, I'd recommend this kind of strap for all crossbow systems out there. This makes a lot of sense. It's a little bit more cumbersome, and yeah, you could hold it and be just fine. I have been too. But having that extra strap does seem to be an insurance policy from getting your knuckles busted. Probably a good insurance policy for Excalibur to prevent lawsuits and things, I suppose, as well, because now you have no excuse for hitting your knuckles. The manual says you load up or you cock the first string first, the top one, that is, and then you cock the bottom string. You actually have it in the fire position when you wind it up, and then you'll hear a very distinct click. One of the best distinct clicks I've heard when I compare it to other systems like Raven. I've heard a very clear click. When I put these arrows in, very clean click as well. So you really know everything is loaded up properly. I really like that about this bow. And then of course you put it on safe. Then you set the cocker on the bottom string. You wind that up and on fire mode, and then when it clicks, you put it on safe mode again. Keeping it on safe mode, you put these two arrows into it. Again, you'll hear a very distinct click, and then it's ready to shoot, of course, after you put it in fire mode. There are two triggers. I feel a little bit of feedback in those triggers, but otherwise they're crisp as far as when you fire, they just snap really well, cleanly. But I noticed that you can get a little bit of feedback from the recoil of the bow. These are heavy limbs. Together, combined, the limbs are over 350 pounds. So obviously, dividing that in half, I guess they would be, 150 something. The arrows that they shoot without the field tips, well, it's 350 grains altogether, so you have a 100 grain field tip up front and 250 grain quill arrows, what they call it. So obviously a little bit shorter, around 16 inches. Also, the other thing I really like about this system is how all the machine rising that went into getting the arrow set up. It's really easy just to guide the arrow properly through the notches here. Now, I've used Ravens and stuff like that, and I've accidentally put the arrow upside down on a Raven, making it shoot and knock off all the vanes and obviously the arrow not accurately hitting the target. I made that mistake before. I didn't turn the arrow upside down. The nice thing is this is basically kind of dummy proof. So when it's been a year since you've shot, since last season, you can pull it out and shoot it again. I typically think of crossbows, and maybe I don't have the right mentality about it compared to archery, but I tend to think of crossbows as more of that high power rifle that you pull out seasonally to shoot. I'm not sure if they're set up to be everyday shooters like a typical compound bow is, and the community of people pulling out crossbows and just shooting all day like you would with compound bows, I don't see. But as a tool to harvest game, I think it's really cool. And when do I kind of foresee myself using something like this? Again, it's usually when it's been pretty far into archery season and gun season's over, and maybe I'm just sitting in a cold blind and just don't feel like pulling my compound bow back. I've hunted most of the season with my compound bow, and maybe my target practice has kind of fallen to the wayside, and that's usually when I like to pull out this bow. That doesn't mean I don't use my compound bow in the cold winter as well, but it is kind of nice to just change it up. I enjoy changing it up. It's kind of the spice of life. So while my heart is with compound archery, occasionally I like to shoot crossbows, and occasionally I like to shoot guns. It's all fun to me. And so anyway, this is a really cool tool. I like my Raven, the R9. I can't imagine getting a Raven R500. I haven't even seen one as of May 2021, even as a review. I would love to see whether it's really hitting 500 and all that stuff. So again, this is a relatively expensive crossbow. You're kind of getting two crossbows in one. You're probably looking at under $2,000 off the street kind of price. Obviously, this would make it a high-end crossbow, and it looks like that. It's very well done. My only other thoughts about it is the way crossbow market is. You either got these really high-end crossbows, got some mid-range crossbows, and then you have a lot of very inexpensive crossbows. They probably all take deer. I have not really owned too many of the really lower-end ones. I have some little bit of lower end, but the Raven and this one are going to do me more than well. I still have a PSE tack, believe it or not, which was a high-end crossbow with all the bells and whistles that you see in these upscale crossbows now. Well, anyway, let me send a shot down range and see what you all think. As I'm getting ready to shoot this bow, obviously I should mention, of course, or I did mention that the arrow weighs around 350 grains, shooting 360 feet per second, making it kind of a modest fast bow nowadays. Obviously, there's those 400 something feet per second. They always don't tell you exactly what weight those arrows are, but we're still talking over 100 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. Good enough to kill just about anything walking on Earth, if not everything. Put the caulking device on next. It comes on and off, so it's really easy to, and it locks in place. I found it to be a really good system. Normally it's hooked up here. As the device says, you're supposed to caulk the top string first. You'd actually take it all the way down here, and then you'll see, like just a typical crossbow, there's this little groove that you need to put the strings in, and then you take it all the way down to the actual string itself. So when I say strings, I mean obviously these strings go around this groove on the caulker and then put it on the bow strings. And then this device here is our fail-safe, kind of protect you from letting go. It's called a fail-safe strap. Kind of reminds me of a typical compound release aid. I've caulked this without this before, and again, it can be ambidextrous or not. I'm going to put it on the right side since I'm right-handed. It just clicks in, and then I can literally just start winding the string. It's in fire mode right now. That'll help me to caulk, or to have the string catch. So I put my foot in the stirrup, but again, I don't see much problem with it. I just listen, you'll hear it. So once I hear that click, I can unwind slowly. We're good to go. And then you can take these off. I think you're supposed to put it in safe mode temporarily. Then I'm going to take it back out. Then I'm going to take it back down to the second bottom string now. As instructed, you're supposed to do the top string first, bottom string second. And then click the other side. And then again, click this in. And start winding, and then when I hear the final click where it catches, the string catches, should happen any second, I just unwind gently, and then you can take this actually completely off, really, because you're not going to really want to shoot with this on, this caulking mechanism. And then I probably would take this off too when I'm sitting in the woods. And now I put it in safe mode. The nice thing about you're going to want to load the bottom arrow first. The nice thing is it's pretty fail safe. In other words, you're going to know which direction, but you're going to want to put that bottom one in first, because otherwise you're more likely to cut yourself on the top one trying to get the bottom one in. And you'll actually hear a click again. I like that. It's very audible, so you don't have to really worry about not having put it in properly. Like other bows, it can be so quiet that you don't even know that you've done it. So listen again. Very audible. Now it's ready to shoot. The bottom trigger is the bottom string. The most important thing is don't put your thumbs up here or do anything dumb like that and get it cut off. Keep your hand well down below, and that's nice. Luckily, this is a nice big ridge where you had to really fight to get it over there. Now you can shoot both of them at the same time. I don't recommend it. So I'm going to shoot the top one first, followed by the bottom one at that turkey down there. I tend to go back to that bottom string. I'm going to have to learn these triggers a little better. All right, so then it's been shot. I can see that I'm a little bit wobbly. I don't have it completely sighted in, but we have 2 arrows in the turkey at least. Even like this casual shooting, it's nice to have that second shot. It's just a little bit more fun than just having the one-to-one shot. Anyway, I'm looking forward to getting this out in the woods someday. I would consider getting this crossbow. I think it has a lot of usefulness.